want a second look.
Yeah, there's something about this one, isn't there? Familiar somehow.
We think we're stuck in a specific fragment in time, and we've been repeating that same fragment over and over again.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, TV Reviews, Connection in Mind. Marvel's Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. has aired 7 seasons from starting in the fall of 2013 and ending this year in August of 2020. And this show is one where I've been following from the beginning. I've been a fan of it. I've reviewed a whole bunch of it on my channel. I've done reaction videos to all of season 7, and I've done reviews of at least the first of the last 2 seasons. And now I want to give you my brief thoughts on a series overview. If you're not familiar with the series, or if you're a fan of it and you just want to, like me, you just want to talk about it because the ride is over as of this year, and you know, it's been a good run, I think. It's had its high points, it has low points, just like any series, and I just kind of want to talk about it and give my overview of the series, why I think it's worth viewing even after it's gone beyond what it was originally premised, and why I'm sad to see it go, and why I think that where we're gonna go from here, what its legacy will be. So just a little bit of background on the series. If you're unfamiliar with it, Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. started airing on ABC in 2013, which, if you're unfamiliar with the release schedule of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is right after, or the year after, the biggest movie ever dropped, which was the first Avengers, Marvel's The Avengers, where if you came to the series after this and after the Avengers, or you're just relatively new to it, it's kind of hard to convey just how big a risk it was, because nowadays it's sort of taken as granted that the Marvel Cinematic Universe concept works. It's been proven as recently as Avengers Endgame. That was like the biggest movie of all time. Just like the Avengers in 2012 was the biggest movie of all time. And it was a huge risk. I don't know about you, but me personally, I was really hoping that they were going to stick the landing on that. And they did big time from director Joss Whedon. And this series, Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., was sold on the premise that it was from the mind of Joss Whedon, who had directed the biggest movie of all time, Marvel's The Avengers, and it was set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the same universe. It was shaped by the events of these characters, of Iron Man, of Captain America, of Thor, of Hulk, and S.h.i.e.L.D., the agency that tied them all together at that point. And it was showing the fact that there was other stuff going on outside of the movies, in between the movies, and we would get to see them. It was like an extension of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We were getting more Marvel in our homes on a weekly basis, and we would get to revel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe-ness of it all in TV. It was that extension. It was really exciting at the time, I thought. However, a little film called Captain America: The Winter Soldier came along, which personally my favorite of the MCU. But if you're unfamiliar with that movie, S.h.i.e.L.D. basically blows up. S.h.i.e.L.D. was infiltrated by Hydra over its entire lifetime, the last 70 years, and in order to destroy Hydra, they had to destroy S.h.i.e.L.D. as well, and well, that kind of blew up the original premise of the Marvels of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. So that really hampered the last. That really threw a kink in the last few episodes of season 1, and then from that point on, they had to chart their own course. But they still wanted to. It was still part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but just kind of happening in the background. But as time went on, the last big tie-in with Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was in season 2, midway through or 3/4 of the way through season 2, was a tie-in to the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron in 2015. But after that point, the series charted its own course. Less and less did it tie in directly to the events of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In fact, there are times where it directly contradicted things that happened in the MCU, or at the very least, it did not acknowledge things that happened. Most glaringly is the fact that that they do not acknowledge the events of the snap from Avengers Infinity War. That did not play a part in anything that any of the character development or anything that happened in seasons 5, 6, and 7, which is when after the point where Avengers Infinity War was released. But in my opinion, that was not after that point. The link with the MCU was just its starting point. It was its foundation, the little seed that it grew out of, but it continued to grow because of the characters that we learned from it. And the cast of characters, it followed the original core team of the titular Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., starting with Agent Phil Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, who you may remember was killed at the end of Marvel's The Avengers, but they brought him back for the series. How they brought him back is dealt with throughout the series, and that has consequences later on. And as aside from he builds his team, really Coulson was built as the main character, the stepping stone character for this show, and everything else revolved around him. Basically, it was his team as they would go along with it. And rounding out that team is Agent Melinda May, played by Na-Wen, Agent Grant Ward, Agents Leopold Fitz and Gemma Simmons, who were the tech part of the team, as well. And finally, of the core team was Chloe Bennett, who played Sky. Her original name was Sky, a hacker who hacks into S.h.i.e.L.D., is oftentimes well ahead of the S.h.i.E.L.D. team in finding out information about superpowered individuals. And Coulson brings her onto the team because he sees potential in her and finds that she could be an asset to the S.h.i.E.L.D. Team. But as time goes on, he finds out that Sky she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know who her parents are. She doesn't know where she came from, and she's someone who's looking for a family. She was with a gang of hackers to begin with because she thought they would be her family. But as time goes on, she ends up being adopted as part of this core S.h.i.E.L.D. team's family. And when things hit the fan and S.h.i.E.L.D. implodes and Hydra rises and to combat them, she clings to that family more and more. And the family dynamic of this core group of people and then the extended group of characters as the seasons go on is the core aspect of the show, in my opinion, and the reason why I think it stuck around and endured and kept its quality throughout its run, even though the audience tended to drift away once it became clear that this show was not going to be as tied in or really even acknowledged by the movies that people were more familiar with. The audience definitely shrank some, but those of us that were left were pretty loyal. In fact, I believe it was in 2019 that a study came out that Agents of S.h.i.E.L.D. was the most DVR'd show in the world, or at least of their survey results, and based on their various metrics, and that may or may not have been completely accurate, but it shows that even though that like by traditional Nielsen ratings, it was definitely down a whole bunch. There was an audience there, and for me, this was a ride that I stuck with it because of the characters. I stuck with it because of the dynamics between them, and the action was cool. They were able to bring in certain characters that were part of the MCU or were Marvel characters that they got to play with from the comics and bring them into the fold, and just the action itself, the storylines were great, but primarily it was the characters, and for me, that was the reason why I stuck with it all this time, especially the relationship between Skye/Daisy, as she became to be known, after season 2, and Coulson. I think that dynamic that was the core of the show, and I think that worked out so beautifully. And I think that that was the reason why I think that the show is worth considering. There are 7 seasons overall, and just as a whole, I'm going to give my brief thoughts on each season and my definitive rankings of the two. So of the seasons. So all 7 seasons, I'm going to rank them here. I'm going to start with the worst and end with the best. So here we go, my definitive rankings and my thoughts on each season of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. Here we go, starting with the least, in my opinion, none of these seasons are terrible by any means, but they go from great to just okay seasons. So we're going to start with the most okay of the seasons, the least of the seasons, in my opinion, ranked number 7. Season 3, I think, is the least of the 7 seasons of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. because in my mind, I think the core narrative wasn't necessarily strong enough, in my opinion. Season 3 is where we find that S.h.i.e.L.D. is starting to get involved in a growing epidemic of people, Inhumans, going through Terrigenesis, whether they want to or not. People who didn't know they had these inhuman abilities inside them, and without control, without discipline, their powers can often manifest in destructive and dangerous manners, and they find themselves being persecuted, they find themselves being hunted down, and the S.h.i.e.L.D. team, led by Daisy, who has accepted who she is as an Inhuman. She's gained control of her powers, and she is trying to assemble a team of Inhumans in order to do some good for S.h.i.e.L.D. But of course, there are other forces who are seeking Inhumans as well, and there is a threat from Hydra overall, who not only want Inhumans for their own purposes, but just for their powers in order to build their own Inhuman army, but to deliver these Inhumans to a greater threat, and it is revealed that it is the oldest and key meaning behind Hydra as a whole, as an organization, and it has existed for well longer than World War II and the Red Skull. This season, again, none of the seasons of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. are absolutely horrible. I just think that this season is the most okay at the bottom of the 7, because the core narrative of the Inhumans, while it is a through line all the way through, they put so much emphasis on the Inhumans, and yet they don't necessarily develop them that much. They kind of show up. They have their powers. They could have focused more and more on them trying to let them be able to accept who they are as Inhumans, to learn more about them. But oftentimes they just kind of get pushed aside, and the focus becomes more on the S.h.i.e.L.D. team trying to protect them from the outside forces, be it the ATCU or Hydra. And while those are definitely antagonists, and their storylines are good as far as the conflict goes, I think the fact that this season was supposed to focus more on the Inhumans and their struggles, they oftentimes get kind of pushed aside and then brought back in for a little bit and then get pushed to the side again. It really only gets going in the second half of the season, when when Maveth, /s.h.i.e.l.d, the Uber, the first Inhuman, is brought back to Earth, and it turns out that he has the ability to sway Inhumans into his influence, and he can control Inhumans, and he's able to, and that becomes an Inhumans versus humans thing. And Hydra ends up being destroyed, but they still have to deal with Hive. The Hive storyline is great. I think Hive is a great villain, but the fact that he only really comes in the second half, the first half is kind of muddled. Although that has the episode, was it 4,722 hours, where it documents Simmons' time stranded on Maveth's planet, and that's a great episode. I think that's a great character piece. As to, it's basically Castaway, and it works out great. But overall, I think it got a little muddled. Also because at that point they were the Agents of S.h.i.e.l.d. was trying to integrate an X-Men style element to its show because at that point they still didn't have the rights to the X-Men. That was still with Fox at the time, and they were pushing more and more the Inhumans. And then this is right around the time where the Inhumans TV show and the Inhumans movie was going to be big, and this was going to be how Inhumans were going to be like mutants in the MCU, and this was they were obviously pushing this as a big focus, and that was going to be how it was going to be tying into the Inhumans movie. But then the Inhumans TV show, which I'm a fan of Marvel TV, but I had to stop like 5 episodes into it because that was just horrible. And most people will agree with me that was not a great show. And then they kind of had to push that on the back burner, I think. So that's kind of why I think this season 3 suffers, is because they had to push that so hard, and it ended up not being as good as it could have been. And like I said, Hive is a great villain. 4,722 hours is a great episode, and Scott and Daisy is a great result of pushing Inhumans for this whole thing, and she's great as Quake. But overall, I think season 3 is definitely the least of the seasons. So let's move on to my ranking for number 6 in the season, which is season 2 is what I rank at number 6, because in my opinion, it has a lot of the similar problems as season 3 did, where it really only gets going in the second half of the season. And this season picks up right where season 1 left off, where Agent Coulson is now a director of a S.h.i.e.L.D. that he feels that he needs to rebuild from the ground up. He has a lot less infrastructure than he did before, and the team he's trying to do the best he can. He has Ward, who is locked up in the basement of this secret base that he's found. Fitz is still trying to recover from his ordeal at the end of season 1, where he had a brain injury, and he's trying to figure out how to get that works, but that's only that has complicated his relationship with Agent Simmons. Skye is trying to become more of a S.h.i.e.L.D. agent under the tutelage of May, but things are getting complicated because there's a new threat out there. Hydra is continuing on the move, and there are new forces at work. Raina is trying to introduce Skye to her father, and her father is not a good guy. He's a murderer. He's definitely lost his way over the years. He's not the man that Skye imagined he would be. And midway through, the season shifts to Skye has gone through Terrigenesis. She has inhuman powers that she has to figure out how to control. at first she tries to get rid of them or try to get back to normal, but she finds that that's impossible, so she has to learn how to live with this new power without hurting the people she loves. And she meets her mother, who is also not who she thought, who she imagined would be, and her mother and father want to destroy humanity, basically, or destroy S.h.i.e.L.D. And because they see humans as a threat to the Inhumans, because the humans are hunting the Inhumans or persecuting them. But so she has to choose between her mother and the Inhumans and her family at S.h.i.e.L.D. And there's also a side plot where a splinter faction of S.h.i.E.L.D. survivors believes that Coulson is unstable and leading S.h.i.E.L.D. down the wrong path. And he is the personification of what was wrong with the old S.h.i.E.L.D. So they formed their new S.h.i.E.L.D., their own version of S.h.i.E.L.D., where they think that their version by council is the best way to go. So, like I said, all of the best things in this season happen in the second half of the season, and in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why it hampers it. Why I think it's better than season 3 is because that second half is so much stronger than the first half. I'd take the second half of season. Well, I'll take the second half plus 2 episodes of the first half, the last 2 episodes of the first half, over the entirety of season 3 any day at this point. And plus, we get to see Bobby and Hunter, who are new additions to the S.h.i.E.L.D. team. They're great characters overall. They have good chemistry together, even as a estranged couple who tried to get who were married, then they got divorced, but then they have a flirty relationship where they want to be together, but they know that they're not good for each other, but they are good for each other. They're just fun characters. Plus, in season 3, their own Bobby and Hunter get shuffled off, I think 6 episodes in, and it's a shame because they were going to get their own spinoff, which I believe was called Marvel's Most Wanted, but that got canceled, and that is a humongous shame because Adrienne Palicki is such a great actress, and she does a great job in S.h.i.E.L.D. And she's part of the reason why I went over to see The Orville, and The Orville is such a great show, partially because she's on it, and she does a great job there too. So those are great elements of this season, but I think this ranks so low because that first half of the season, especially the stuff they do with Ward as well, doesn't. He worked best when in season 1, where he was a friend and then they betrayed him, and he's focused on gaining redemption in this in this season, but in season 2, but. They focused a little either too much or too little on his story, and it doesn't necessarily work in my opinion. I think he worked better as the guy who you try to like and then he gets betrayed. And then when you figure out he's a betrayer, you're not really surprised when he betrays. So he loses something in that. So I think that made him a weaker character for that. So for that reason, that's why I rank season 2 as number 6. So next, we go into to my 5th ranked season of Agents of S.h.i.E.L.D., which is season 5. Appropriately enough, is ranked number 5 in my opinion, because similar to seasons 2 and 3, I think it has a problem of half the season is great, and then it changes gears, and then the other half isn't quite as good. And this time it's reversed, where in my opinion, the first half of season 5 is great when the team is thrown into the far future of a timeline where the Earth is broken apart, and it's revealed to them that they were brought there because it was prophesied that they would be the ones to save the world, but the world's been destroyed, and they don't have to figure out A, what this place is, B, how they're supposed to get home, and C, if they're supposed to save the world, how are they supposed to save the world when the world has clearly been destroyed in the process. I think that's just a great storyline. I think it does a great, the Kree and their relation with the Inhumans. It's a great way to tie in use the Inhumans better than as just bigger characters than what they were, in trying to push them into the movie, the Failed Inhumans movie or the Failed Inhumans TV show. This is a good use of Inhumans, in my opinion, and they are able to. Cassius is just a great smarmy villain, and the actor who plays Cassius does a good job of imbuing him with a sense of just like he's supposed to be charming, but he's not. You don't want to be near him because he just gives off that presence of like revulsion, and just. I think he does a great job as a villain. I think the character, the S.h.i.e.L.D. team, it's great to see them work as a team and work with just what resources they have, without even what limited resources they had, as the S.h.i.e.L.D., the much reduced S.h.i.e.L.D. of later seasons, and that's the great part. But what hurts the season, I think, is the second half of this season, where they go back to the present and they have to try to avoid the future of destroying the world, and they're convinced that Daisy is going to destroy the world somehow, and they have to figure out how to prevent that. Then it ends up getting the General Talbot ends up becoming infused with gravitonium. I believe that's supposed to be Graviton is the name of his comic character that he's supposed to be based on, and he's fun as a over-the-top villain with cool powers, but he really only has those powers for an episode or two at the very end, and that's not enough time, I think, in my opinion, for that. And Option 2 is a fun episode. I like the lighthouse as a setting, but I think that the characters, they don't have enough to work off in this episode. I think the tension doesn't necessarily build up enough. And the new antagonist for this second half is a Air Force general who was part of the S.h.i.e.L.D., part of Hydra, but then she was just kind of off in the background, and she's like the last remnant of Hydra, but then she struck a deal with an alien confederation who is built up as a great threat, but then they seem to be defeated relatively easily, and then they're not really brought up again. They're briefly mentioned in season 6, but that's about it. And the fact that this is the season where they name drop that Thanos is on the other side of the world doing who knows what in Wakanda, but again, this is the season that does not that name drops Thanos in time for Infinity War, but then this is the one that also said, nope, we're not going. We're just on our own thing now. We're not going to acknowledge the snap in any way. And that, as someone who wanted this series to be more intertwined with the MCU, at least a little bit more than what it was in later seasons, that was just. At that point, you just don't acknowledge it at all. I think the fact that they acknowledge it, but then don't do anything with it, is a disservice. And but overall, I think this season works out well. I think this is the season where Fifth and Simmons finally get married, and then this is the season where Coulson, as we know him, dies, and just that when Daisy has to contemplate going on with her life without Coulson. Like, again, Chloe Bennett is like the best part of the series. I kid you not. And her delivery of those lines and the emotion she brings when she's contemplating that. I mean, again, I generally get welled up at that because that is powerful in my opinion, and she does it so well. That's a great part of this season, but overall, it just feels a little disjointed. And like I said, it's one of those where the first half is great and then the second half is not as strong. And I think that is a disservice to the season. And that's why season 5 is ranked number 5 in my opinion. So season 1 is number 4 in my opinion, middle of the pack for the series, and this is season 1. I think a lot of people kind of write it off as the worst of the series, but I disagree. I think the reason, I understand why people write it off. I think it's especially the first 2/3 of the season 1 is it's a common problem for first season of any show where they're still trying to get the rhythm of each other. They're starting to the chemistry is still in the being built. They're not the camaraderie still is developing. It's not quite there. They're not quite off to the races just yet, and the fact that this was kind of billed as a traditional police procedural is set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where meaning that the episodes are self-contained. It's a continuing story, but they're self-contained narratives where it's like the team goes to a place, something weird is happening. They have to investigate it, and they investigate it. They conclude it. End of episode, move on to the next one. They're in a completely different place in the next episode. It's very traditional, very old school in that regard, and I can understand why a lot of people were kind of turned off by it. That they prefer the more serialized aspects, a serialized show, and it does become that in later for the rest of the series. But in this one, they were kind of finding their footing on that one. But I think it worked great. I think it worked best when the way that they tied it in with the MCU, it ties in directly to Iron Man 3, to Thor the Dark World, and to, of course, Captain America the Winter Soldier. And I think the way it ties it in, it works beautifully. And it's one of the reasons why I started watching the show to begin with, that it was an extension of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think for what it is, when it does that, it works great. And of course, Sky as a character, just Chloe Bennett is great, and she deserves all the accolades for her work on the show, and she deserves to be, and her character on this, her character would evolve as the series would go, obviously, but I think that she plays the role as she was given in this first season very well, and she has a great introduction to her character, and really the first season is about her and her relationship to Coulson, even though Coulson is arguably the main character of the series. In this season especially, it's him and her, and is Coulson and Sky as the main characters, and I think this season 1 works great in that one, so that's why I say, but there are better seasons out there, but it's not the worst, not the best. That's why I place season 1 directly in the middle of the pack for Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. So let's move on to my top 3, the top 3 seasons. Ranked at number 3. Season 6 is ranked number 3 in my opinion, and it is one where I think this is sort of a tricky season to grade, just because they shrunk the number of episodes down considerably. There's only 13 episodes in season 6 and season 7, whereas all the other seasons were over 20 episodes per one. So they were on a truncated episode order on that front. But also the fact that seasons 6 and 7, I believe, were filmed back to back, and it was basically they filmed one season's order and cut it to make it 2 seasons. So arguably, this is only season 6 is kind of half of a season. But as a half a season, I'd say it does a good job with its characters. Like I've been saying, the best part of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is when it focuses on the characters, the dynamics between characters. When it introduces a new character, it works best when it's able to find a pairing that works great. Just have one pair pairs off with one character. They're able to build a camaraderie there, and then they bring a new character into the fold that way. And that way, in that regard, I think season 6 works great in that regard. I think that the fact that this season focuses more on the characters trying to deal with the fact that a new villain is in play, wearing Coulson's face, that gives a whole lot of emotional turmoil to our characters, especially May and Daisy. The fact that they're facing an enemy that is ruthless, but also looks exactly like their friend, their lover, their mentor, depending on who it is. It's a disturbing time for them, and it's a difficult thing for them, and they don't always succeed. They sometimes make the wrong decision out of emotion, and then they have to deal with the fact that, did I fail because I made an emotional call, or did I not? I think there's great conflict in that front. Also, the episode with Daisy and Simmons on the casino planet, was it Fear and Loathing on the planet Kinson or whatever that episode is called. That is a great episode. I love that. I think they do a great job. That just, to me, is showing that they knew that their time was running out as a show, and they were just looking for excuses to have fun, and they're having a blast on that episode, and I think that's a great episode as well. And I think that that through line with the character work goes throughout the season. Where I think this season falters is the fact that the true enemy, s.h.i.e.l.d., we really don't know a whole lot about her. I mean, she's introduced about halfway through. It was built up through dialogue of Sarge and his team hunting the Shrike, that a real enemy is coming. These are a threat, and their leader is someone who you don't want to mess with, and I've gotten close to killing her, but I couldn't. And then once we met her, she didn't necessarily live up to the hype. I think I don't blame the actress at all. I blame the fact that I feel like the way it was written, it didn't seem like, maybe it was the direction, maybe it was just the writing, but it didn't feel like the performance, the character that we got, Matt, lived up to the hype that we were given earlier in the season. And really, we learned very little about her, and we know her motivation is order, and they want to build an order regardless of whatever, and they come from a realm with no emotion. But yeah, there's the final battle between s.h.i.e.l.d. and May isn't really, that just kind of comes out of nowhere, and honestly, her as a villain is somewhat weak, so honestly, Sarge is the much better villain in this, and but overall, I think it's a enjoyable season, and that's why I rank it at number 3. So let's move on to what ranks at number 2. Season 7, the most recent, the final season, is ranked at number 2 for me, and who knows, maybe 10 years down the line, I may revise my rankings. There may be recency bias that I rank it so high, but honestly, this is a darn good season, mostly because, again, they knew that they were running out of episodes. They knew the end was coming, so I believe the writing team behind it, they just wanted to have some fun with this. Obviously, the stakes are high, that the Chronicoms are trying to destroy Earth, and the team is trying to prevent them from destroying S.h.i.e.L.D. and mucking up the time, the history of Earth and S.h.i.e.L.D. They have to follow them through time, but they get to go through so many fun time frames, like 1930s New York, 1950s Nevada, the 1970s New York, 1980s. The episode in the 1980s just is the best, is my favorite episode of that season. What I think works about this season is the fact that they're able to pair, again, they're focusing on the characters, not so much the action, and that's where Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. has its strength. These are characters that we've cared about all these times. We've seen them grow. We've seen them make mistakes and recover from them. And this time we just get to see them have some fun playing these characters, even though the characters in the story are going through some dire straits. And I mean, we will see character pairings that we don't necessarily see before. Like, as I mentioned in my season 7 review, like May and Yo-Yo are a great pair. Deke and Mac in my favorite episode of the season in the 1980s. It's like, Yeah, they couldn't stand each other earlier in the series, and but then they grow closer together, and we get to see them reconcile and learn from each other, and that's just a great part of the season. And the finale, again, any finale of a show that can make me like tear up a little bit at saying like they're having their goodbye, and it's just, and it's like, no, that's yeah, we've had a good run, and it's great, and that's a mark of a good finale, in my opinion. What I think holds this season back is the fact that it takes a little too long setting up the pieces for the series finale. Like the final action, the final two-parter is great, but it takes one episode too many setting up the final battle, in my opinion, and that's kind of a jarring shift when they kind of have to settle on one time frame, setting things up for the final battle, especially when the earlier parts of the season revolve around, oh, they're jumping. They're in one specific time for one episode, maybe two, and then jump to another one. One episode, two episode, jump to another one. It's kind of a fast paced, and we're trying to keep up with them as they're in the story, trying to keep up with the Chronicoms. It's a faster pace, and then they kind of slow down for the finale. Maybe it's the deep breath before the plunge, but that seemed a little jarring to me. But also, just a side note, the fact that they changed the title card of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. for episodes when they're in various in different time periods is just awesome. I love that touch, especially my favorites are the 50s one and the 80s one, where it's just the green type on the typeface on the black screen. The one where it's just like it looks like the Back to the Future like clocks flying by. That's kind of a cool one, but no, the various title cards is a great touch, but all of that, I think it's a great season, a great way to end the series, but it's keeping me from being the number one, in my opinion, and my personal favorite season, and I think the one that succeeds the most, and the number one ranked in my opinion of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is Season 4 of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. is what I consider the number one ranked season of the series, and I tell you why. It's because it's probably the most ambitious season of the entire series, and except for one or two little minor things, they really pull it off. Most ambitious because this is the season that they divided it into 3 blocks. Whereas in other seasons, they kind of divide the season pretty much in half, and they focus on one thing for one half and another thing for another half. And this one, they split it into 3 different arcs. The first one being where the S.h.i.e.L.D. is about to go legitimate, and Coulson has decided to step aside as director and bring in a new face for the public because he has made too many bad calls, and he felt that someone else being director would be better. He felt being in the field was more better serving, except when the new director makes calls that he doesn't agree with, and Coulson doesn't like being on the other side. Whereas Daisy is punishing herself for after the death of Lincoln at the end of season 3, and she's afraid of hurting anyone else, of losing anyone else, so she cuts herself off from S.h.i.e.L.D. and she goes on the run as Rogue. She's a renegade, and in that time, the first block, she finds herself on the trail of the Watchdogs, the villains, part of the secondary antagonists of season 3, who are out to hunt Inhumans like her. But however, she finds out that also on the trail of the Watchdogs is a man driving a sweet black '69 Dodge Charger with a cool blower, and it catches fire, and the guy has a flaming skull. That's right, Ghost Rider. The first third of the season is Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider, I mean, Gabriel Luna, I believe that's his name, as Robbie Reyes / Ghost Rider, I mean, he's probably the best part of that season by far. And I mean, every time he becomes Ghost Rider, it's amazing. And maybe I'm just a sucker for the visual, but man, they pull it off so well, especially when that was like part of like the consolation prize for people who were bummed about the MCU ties being less as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went on, that they weren't going to tie into the movies as much. I mean, yeah, you're not going to tie into the movies anymore, but hey, you get Ghost Rider, and that's awesome. And another thing you get from the season is life model decoys, the LMDs, which are name dropped in Marvel in the Avengers, but this is where we see them as they go. We see that Melinda May is replaced by an LMD, so that the LMD can take an artifact that S.H.I.E.L.D. is captured, and which holds the secret to immortality, which is a prospect sought by Dr. Holden Radcliffe, another great character, a flawed human being who has good ideas but questionable but somewhat good, somewhat bad motives, and you're not he does evil things, but you think he's good. He's a nuanced villain, and I think that's he's a great character overall, and he gives us Ada, his first LMD, who becomes evil, and through her reading of the Darkhold, this artifact, the book. She designs the framework, like a Matrix-style environment, virtual reality, where she wants to. She's programmed to maintain the framework, and by maintaining the framework, she's told to change something that a regret in everyone's lives. But it's like the tapestry. You pull on the thread, and everything else falls apart. In the framework, when eventually the entire team is captured, save for Daisy and Simmons and a handful of other agents, Yo-Yo, they go into the framework and find that because of the changes that Ada has made to their environment, the world of the framework is theoretically a recreated version of the world outside, except is no longer Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in there, it is Agents of Hydra. In this alternate framework reality, Hydra, in fact, won the war, S.H.I.E.L.D. was destroyed, and the humans are a threat, and Daisy and Simmons must find their team before and escape the framework with their lives, but the problem is the people inside their team inside the framework, their memories of what it was outside are blocked. They're only getting fragments. They only know what's happened inside the framework, and they have to not only be convinced that their world around them is unreal, but the world outside is where they actually belong. And then it sets up the final confrontation when Ada, in all this time, gains a human body with inhuman powers, and in order to defeat Ada, it's revealed that the Darkhold is an artifact that the Ghost Rider himself has to return to from whence it came, the Spirit of Vengeance's realm or whatever. And the final confrontation between Ada and Ghost Rider is awesome, and it also sets up a ominous warning when Ghost Rider says, "You know what the deal? You know you're going to hold up your end of the deal with Coulson." When Coulson had the Spirit of Vengeance's spirit inside his body, it sets up a great mystery that's revealed in this next season. And of course, the final shot is Coulson looking out the window of the lighthouse and setting up the path that, oh man, we're going into space next. It's going to be awesome. And all this said, this is the most ambitious season ever of the show, and I think it pulls it off quite well. My only real complaint of this season is that the middle third, the LMD arc, it goes a little bit too long, and I think the framework also is just one episode a little too long, and they could have resolved that a little bit better. But overall, this season lands. It was the most ambitious, and again, it gave us Ghost Rider, and I'm sad that they canceled the Ghost Rider series because that would have been awesome. But there you go. That is my determination. #1 season of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. season 4. So with all that being said, I just want to give a brief conclusion as to my thoughts on the season of the series of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. What do I think its legacy is? Well, this whole thing started as an extension of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you had the movies. The movies were awesome. We were going to continue getting the movies, but we could also get if you can't wait between the release of the next Marvel movie, then you have the TV show where you're still in that universe. And even though it eventually left that behind and charted its own course and landed brilliantly, I think there's something in that is still valuable, and I think it was a trial run of a way to say how this could be done, how a interconnected universe of films, of TV could work, what to do, what to not do, and I think in that there's this potential for success, and we'll see. And the legacy is that now, as of 2020, we will be getting the next phase of the MCU will be a mixed one where the TV shows on Disney Plus, namely Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision, will tie in directly to the movies, and they will be they've yet to come out, so I can't say this for certain, but I think it's been said that they will tie in more directly to the movies and that than had ever happened before, including Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. So this is one. So there's the legacy on that, and I think it showed that people were willing and eager to have that connection, even though it branched off. I feel like there's a need there, and Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. paved the way so that hopefully those shows can succeed, and I can't wait to see what those shows look like as they go on. And even if they fail, which I somehow doubt, but there's always the possibility. Marvel isn't perfect, see Inhumans, but just Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., it's a 7-year run, and it's one where I'd say, for all the fans of the show out there, I'd say it was a good time watching. And if you dropped off the series partway through, or maybe you got turned off by it after the first, like I said, that first season, I can understand why people were turned off from it at the time. It did take a little bit to get the traction going, get the chemistry rolling. But if you dropped off of it, I highly recommend checking it out again. It is well worth it. And this is one of those. I would say this is one of my favorite shows that I've seen, and even though it's not officially part of the MCU canon, I still consider it part of the MCU, and I know I'm not alone in that regard. So thank you for sticking with me this whole time, and I hope that if you're a fan of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to dispute my rankings, let me know in the comments down below. If you're not a fan of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and you stuck around those the time, I'd like to hear from you as well. What do you think of it? If you're going to check it out, if you dropped off for reasons and you're sticking with it, again, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get, truly. You guys are the best. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching again. Be sure to check out my review for The New Mutants, which comes out August 28th. I'll be seeing that and doing a review, as well as my review for Tenet. Assuming nothing goes wrong with theaters, we're still on for that. Again, look for those. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much. But just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.